everybody.
I'm here too.
Hi.
Good. Welcome. Thank you
Hi,
for coming.
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank
We'll
you
get,
so much for being here.
Laura was so easy to work with. I told her what we were doing. She said, I'm there. I'm coming. I'm coming. It's so
Just
nice
down
to
for
see
it
you.
before she even knew.
Yeah. We
All right, well,
appreciate
everybody,
you.
we're gonna kick it off with our last speaker of the day, which is one more, and we're ending it on a great note today. So our last speaker is going to be Laura Zettergren. She is the director of operations at Gap. She brings over 13 years of leadership from the Army to Fortune 500 companies like the Gap and Nike. So we're really blessed to have her here today. Thank you again, Laura. Start off just by telling us kind of who you are, a little bit about your story, and how you got to where you're at now.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here. It sounds like there's been a day of Zoom meetings, so we'll just keep it simple. And if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me. So I'm Laura Zettergren. I grew up outside of DC. I swam and did ROTC in college. I went to Lehigh. So when I graduated, I commissioned as an engineer officer in the Army. I was in the Army for about 7.5, almost 8 years. I had a couple of deployments, but one of the critical roles that I did have was I was an aide de camp to a two-star general. That was the best preparation for kind of the civilian life. Also worked within the Corps of Engineers too, so also worked with government civilians. But decided to make the transition out of the Army. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. All I knew I wanted to be somewhere on the West Coast just because I hadn't spent a lot of time there. And started connecting through kind of your natural channels for transitioning. So talked to a few military recruiting headhunters, got partnered with Hiring Our Heroes out of Fort Carson, where that was my last duty station. And then started talking to a few folks at the pathway programs for larger companies. But what ultimately landed me the job at Nike was someone at Fort Carson knew someone at I guess Fort Lewis in Washington State through Hiring Our Heroes who knew somebody at Nike. And so that's kind of the theme for me, at least, is just someone knew somebody somewhere to place me somewhere. So taking advantage and leveraging all of the avenues that you do have is really important. So I landed at Nike in 2019. Was lucky to have sort of roles of progressive leadership in different areas throughout supply chain. So work in supply chain and logistics, I have this whole time since I've been out of the Army. And in the distribution centers. Distribution is very different from manufacturing, and don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but we don't make anything. So there's nothing to manufacture in the DC space. You're essentially just bringing in inventory either from port or from some other location, and then you're reshipping it to the digital online consumer or to a store slash retailer. So during my time at Nike, I had some stints as project management. That's a really good natural transition for veterans, just because the skill sets are generally the same. And then I worked a support role to help DC operations within the four walls. And then I was promoted to director on the transportation side, so helped to stand up an outbound sortation center. And then I took a network role supporting, it's called digital operations. So essentially I was the liaison between the brands at Nike, and that includes Jordan and DC operations, and making sure that whatever the digital online supply chain strategy is being fulfilled across all of the DCs in the network. I then had an opportunity to work at Gap leading a building. So right now I'm the building director for one of the facilities outside of Nashville. There's 3 buildings on the campus. I lead one of the buildings. There's about 600 folks that is on the team. This is all part-time, full-time employees. I have about 10 direct reports, and again, just working through that. So kind of long. Sorry about that.
No.
But any questions?
Yeah. So you mentioned that you weren't really sure what you wanted to do when you got out, which I mean, I think all of us in the room, all 100 of us, could probably resonate with that in some way. So how did you land in supply chain?
It was honestly just a kind of a natural transition, especially working in the military. It's pretty close, and I would say it's as close as you can get unless you're working in the government. Um, you have large teams, you're working through processes, you're working to get something from point A to point B. So anything really in the logistics space, it's that natural transition. So I got pretty lucky. And so when I started talking to the folks at Nike, they did say, hey, we don't have anything for you right now at headquarters, but your resume and your skill set does lend itself to working in the DC space. Do you want to go to Memphis? And sure, why not? Let's go to
Yep.
Memphis. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good to know. A lot of us are trying to figure out like
yeah.
where we're gonna go and where our
I
skills
know.
tie in. So that might be a good little tidbit for somebody who isn't really sure. Maybe they could look into supply
Absolutely.
chain or it's something they
Yeah.
never really thought of before. Christopher, you can go ahead.
Thank you. So, often when we're a part of these programs, they encourage us to start small, or that it's better to go for a more local or privately owned business. But it must feel exhilarating to have to come into a job for a Fortune 500 company like Nike and Gap. If there's any one of us here who would like to venture into a Fortune 500 company right out of the military, what is the best advice to try and tackle that?
Yeah. I would say, as you're looking at roles, one, see if you have a connection. Two, that's the only way I got into Nike and the only way I got into Gap. Two, it may not be exactly what you want at first, but as long
Mhm.
as you can get your foot into the door, then you can start working your way to kind of what you're interested in doing. And you may not even know too. I didn't know. But I had project management experience, I had logistics experience, I was an engineer in the Army. And so leveraging those skill sets as much as possible to just get your foot in the door first. It makes total sense to start small and start local, but there's some semblance of a way to apply your skill set into a larger organization. You can do anything for a year, and then you start kind of working to navigate the other opportunities that the organization does have.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great question, Christopher. I've heard that a lot where a lot of people start is like you said, you might not love the first job you take somewhere, but then growth is really, really quick for veterans because they're willing to do the work and they're a really hard worker and they go in with 100% every day. So it's really common that we hear a story like yours where they go in, they don't love it, and then they really build themselves up to something they really do love. Diana, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
I did, but then Christopher asked the same question, so I'm good. Thank
Okay,
you.
no problem.
Oh wait,
Um,
uh, can we post the LinkedIn and the thing? Because I really want to connect with her.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Laura, do you mind if I post
Thank
your
you.
LinkedIn in the chat?
go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay. There you go, everybody. Everyone go connect with Laura. All right. What do you think one of the biggest adjustments was leaving the army and kind of going into this straight into the really big corporate world?
Um, Biggest adjustment was kind of the lack of structure. You, and again, this is just my experience with the two companies I've worked with. It's just not, things aren't documented. Policy is a little vague. It's a little, so for instance, I showed up 5 minutes early and had an agenda for a meeting, and people thought I was really good at my job. You're just doing the basics, right? So the lack of structure is a challenge. And just kind of you have to adapt to the culture of that organization, and every organization, of course, is different. And what I've seen where veterans do struggle is you're still a veteran and you just don't let it go. And then it kind of isolates you from the rest of your teammates that you do work with. So I've really had to work on adapting and then kind of just talk to my veteran friends on the side and commiserate offline. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of grow yourself within the new world.
Yeah.
Benjamin, go ahead.
Hi, Laura. I know you alluded to a lot of the, like when you first started out working, what were some of the gaps that you had to close when you transitioned, and how did you do it?
Obviously, not being a subject matter expert and not knowing much about the industry. Why project management was an easy transition is you don't necessarily have to be a subject matter expert, because you don't really have a ton of ownership of the outcomes you facilitate, but you don't truly own it. And so when I was a project manager, I did everything I could to learn everything there was about supply chain and spend as much time on the floor, which is just kind of like the operations. Spend as much time as floor in as possible, learning about the processes, learning about end-to-end process flows, and not taking oh, I'm just a project manager, I don't know anything, I'm just here to take notes. I want to learn every single detail about supply chain. And then kind of as I became more comfortable in the industry and the process, and okay, I understand ops, let me learn a little bit about transportation. And so then you're just kind of just building your toolkit. So I would say kind of in the meantime, if you don't have any of that industry experience, just kind of paying attention to the news, listen to Jim Cramer. I've learned a lot from Jim Cramer too, kind of on the civilian side. But whatever industry that you're interested in, just learn as much as possible, even though it's not quite what you're doing, and then you're just building that toolkit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Rebecca.
Hi, hello. Thank you for speaking to us. This is not really of something, well, more of my experience because Gap was actually the first job that I worked at when I graduated high school. And I
That's so
went right
funny.
into working Gap. So you came in, I was like, oh, that's awesome. But the first job, obviously, and I wasn't used to speaking to people, or I didn't know what job I wanted with them. So the first job that they gave me was working freight
Mhm.
work, just putting the merchandise on the ground. And the moment that I learned how to do that and knowing the product that was going on the ground, they moved me to a sales rep to be able to speak with customers. And then once I was able to speak to customers and get to know them and stuff, like very quickly they moved me to like cashier and whatnot. So moving within the company, and then they have like their seniors, their not seniors, they're supervisors. They're very keen on picking like who is like very well driven and whatnot, that within a year I was just kind of like moving in different areas. So it's just a matter of like what you want, you're thriving in it, and then what you want out of the company and what you're able to bring to it. That I had a really great experience with Gap that I was able to transfer into going to like working at the grocery store or working it at Home Depot. Like Gap was just that foundation for me. So I just wanted to say thank you for like what you're doing now, because of the experience that I have like with Gap has like brought me into like the stuff that I do now.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Oh, what a full circle moment, Rebecca. Ashley, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Laura. Thank you so much for coming out and speaking to us. My question, I mean, it might seem kind of similar with what they asked you before, but what do you think are the best ways that we could network with other executives in a, like, let's say a chosen industry, like me, healthcare or HR? What would be the best ways for me to network within those industry executives on those industries?
Yeah, I would say best way, LinkedIn is your best friend, and trying to find the connection, some military connection, some veteran will help you. Again, I'm only here because, people have looked out. Um, LinkedIn's tough right now. The job market, I mean, I don't know how I'm sure you guys know the job market's really, really tough and challenging. And being relentless, talking to recruiters, following up with recruiters. You'll get messages from recruiters. My advice too is if a recruiter reaches out to you, regardless if you're interested in the role or not, respond and continue to respond and continue to have those warm touches. There's been a few times where someone, from XYZ company has reached out and said, this is what we have. And I'll say, I'm not interested at this time, or it doesn't work out for me. Keep me in mind for something else. Just being responsive helps. And a lot of recruiters have circled back, even years later and said, hey, we've got something for you. So finding the internet, veteran connection, leveraging LinkedIn. I didn't get a lot of help from the job fairs, and that's just a honest experience. Anytime I went to a job fair on post, it felt like no one was hiring, or my resume didn't quite match. Probably that's all I got.
No, it's great. Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I
Yeah.
actually had an informational this morning, and it was an industry, like you said, that I wasn't interested, but I still said, hey, sure, I'll give you 20
Yeah.
minutes. And he appreciated it. And I actually have another one in this afternoon. And
That's
it's
great.
actually in an industry that I'm not interested, but I said, you know what, let me just give it a chance. Who knows? And that's pretty much what I'm keeping open-minded to see what they have to. I mean, there's got to be something that they found that they wanted to talk to me about, that they think that I'm a potential. So thank you for letting me know and that's actually what I did this morning, and
That's awesome.
what I'm about to do this afternoon, just to keep
Yeah.
my open-minded to see if there might be something that is not related specifically healthcare what I am right now, but maybe another door that might open up for me.
Great.
But thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, at the very least, it's a little bit of practice for an industry that you actually want to be in. You'll be better for the one that you are interested in. Thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Trenton, go ahead.
Two questions. I know you said you wanted to move like further out west. So what, I guess, made your decision to set up for Memphis, and were you happy about it?
I at that point I was willing to take anything.
Okay.
And I'm actually glad Memphis worked out as opposed to the West Coast. And with my role at Nike, it was pretty great because I did travel a lot. I was probably in Portland at least once a month, especially when I was working in a network role. But that was really the only opportunity. And Memphis, believe it or not, is a very big supply chain hub because it's centrally located within the US. So from Memphis and kind of the Mid-South area, you can get to almost anywhere in 2 days via ground. So it is a big hub for supply chain. And Tennessee, kind of that area. So that was also different, but
Okay.
with the military, you move around and just next adventure.
Yeah, okay. And also, there was a rumor that you're the Oprah of the Gap, so we all get free jeans, right? That's the rumor.
Not
That's what I heard.
in
That's
this
what I heard.
economy, sir.
They lied to me. They lied to me. All right. Thank you.
It was a good try, Trenton. That
Yeah.
advertising really, really is killing it. So I can't say that I don't want the jeans too. So great question. Appreciate you. Laura, you talked a lot about growing within the company at both of your jobs. How does that work? Like when you're in a position and you're wanting to do more, what does that interaction look like?
I think it's a lot different than it is in the military, at least in my experience. It was a kind of clear A to Z path, and these are the jobs that you take, and this is what you do for your promotion, and this is where you need to go to be successful. That is not the case on the civilian side, obviously. And so I had to be very intentional about my own career development and kind of picking and choosing where I think I wanted to be. Again, it's really hard to figure out, but as long as you have an idea of what you think you want your end state to be, how do you have the right kind of checklist items to get you to your end state. So eventually 10 years from now, I still want to be at the senior director, VP level in supply chain and logistics. So I knew that I needed to work in operations. I knew I needed to have large scale leadership. I knew that I needed to have direct ownership of a P&L or a budget. I needed to know transportation. I needed to know kind of the online digital side and working with brand operations. So kind of everything, all of the experiences that I've had are leading up to something where I want to be in 10, 15 years from now. So that's why I've been intentional about my career progression. And so knowing that, who do I reach out to? Who do I partner with? How do I get on projects where teams are working certain things that I want to be? So when I was a project manager, okay, I think I'm interested in transportation. Let me see if I can get on a project that supports the transportation team so that I can make the connections with this team or that team. Because at the end of the day, your goal is to have someone who advocates for you when you're not in the room. And so if the first time you're hearing Laura and it's, a job role is opened, then that's how kind of the word of mouth spreads. Similar to the military, but you have to be way more intentional about it. And you got to network, and sometimes it feels a little icky. I don't love it, but it's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for answering that, because a lot of people talk about like how quickly veterans can grow within the company and how good it is to grow within the company, but they never really explain how. And that's always the question I'm left with. Is like, how do we do it? Where do we start? How do I know
Yeah.
where I want to grow into? So that was a great answer. Ashley, do you have another question?
I do. I don't know. This might be a little bit off the left field, but
Come on.
so throughout your transition and actually going from Gap and Nike and all that stuff, is there a book that helped you that you could recommend for us to read that helped you maybe in a professional level or maybe in a personal level that you were like, oh my gosh, this really resonated in my heart when it comes to like growing, like I said, either professionally or personally?
I love the book Extreme Ownership. I think that applies really well to the military and some components on the civilian side. And especially account accountability is different on the civilian side too, right? And so the folks that can do it well are very successful. So I do like Extreme Ownership. I think that was helpful. I'm trying to think of other books. I should have known this question was coming and I didn't. Yeah, we'll leave it at that one.
No, no, it's okay. I was just thinking about if I was in your seat and I
Thank
had to
you.
answer that question, I would totally blank. So
Thank
you
you
are
so
so
much.
okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Ashley. I really appreciate it. Where do you see veterans really thriving in supply chain roles? Like, is there some qualities or traits that work really well together?
I would say any type of supervisor, manager, director position in operations in supply chain. Sorry, there's no jeans coming, folks. Really sorry. It really does lend itself well. So as a supervisor, area manager, you are working with teams. So generally supervisors have anywhere from 20 to 50 folks. You're working a shift, you're working on processes, you're working on continuous improvement, you are doing similar people management things. You're working on professional development, you are kind of counseling. Counseling is a bit different in the military compared to the civilian side, but where veterans do thrive is understanding the importance of professional development for your subordinates or for the people that report to you. So yeah, that really lends itself well, and it's kind of similar too. Again, it's different stakes too, and so you go from having a set purpose, set mission, set goals, and then for me, we're shipping shoes and shirts. So the stakes are a little bit different. And so how do you find kind of your purpose through work, even though the stakes aren't as high?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Is there a way that veterans can kind of better translate their skills into those kinds of roles? 'Cause I feel like a lot of people struggle with that portion, actually
Yeah.
getting those military words into the right civilian words.
Yeah, I struggled with that too. I used my mom as a barometer. So my mom worked in healthcare, and if she didn't understand what I was saying, or she couldn't understand the story that I was trying to tell, then I need to adjust it.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is talk to someone that you trust who's on the civilian side, who's in a career or kind of in a position that you want to be someday, and then start doing interview prep questions or lean on folks like me or kind of veterans who do go through the interview process and tweak those um, storytelling, and that's something that the team the team can help you with here.
Yeah, yeah. So sorry, someone's comment in the
Yeah.
chat just made me laugh. Greg, you're absolutely right, but it's true. Even if it's not your mom, could be a friend or a mentor or anybody that's been in the civilian world that knows the language. It doesn't have to be your mom, but I'm sure moms are the best. They're the best at any advice. So,
Yeah,
what?
because I will say, like my peers at Gap or at Nike, they don't know what a company commander is. They don't know what a battalion means. They don't know what size elements. They don't know what your scope is. They don't know what a convoy. Maybe they've seen it in a movie. So just keep using again, like use your mom or use your wife or husband or whoever, partner who's not so connected to the military and who doesn't know the language, because what naturally ends up happening is I'm sitting in the interview and I know exactly what you're saying, and the rest of the team's like, well, it doesn't, I don't get it, or it doesn't really make sense. And if I'm not there afterwards to translate for you, um, it just doesn't usually work out.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Did you experience any like imposter syndrome going into your first big job after the military? Did you feel any of that? I feel like it's something we hear a lot.
Not really. So I'm just gonna be very honest. When I
Yeah.
was in the military and like working on the transition, everyone told me, "Oh, it's cutthroat. It's gonna be really tough transition." I felt very well prepared, and I felt like the skills that I had and gained and learned, and the work ethic and being organized and showing up on time,
Mhm.
just that set me apart. Now, the learning curve is tougher, but I didn't feel imposter syndrome when I first transitioned. I don't think anyone in this call should either. You have all of the skills, you've done hard things. And not to say the civilian side isn't hard, it's just different. And the stakes are, like I said earlier, the stakes are so much higher on the military side. So when you get to the civilian world, you guys got it.
Yeah. Yeah, with the stakes being so much higher on the military side, do you think that's helped a lot with you running such large teams? Like you run a whole building right now. Do you think that experience helped you a lot with the situation you're in now?
I do. I think it helps me stay calm under pressure. It also
Mhm.
helps to put things in perspective. Like I said, we just ship shirts and shoes. On the flip side of it, it's you have to you have to create your own purpose. So just my experience alone, because the stakes are lower, I have to put more effort into professional development,
Mm.
putting more into others' professional development, and then also kind of more on the volunteer side or more in my personal life, just because it's the purpose is just different, and it's not 24/7. You can shut it off. It's not, but how do you balance out the areas of the rest of your life too?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like us getting out there is a little bit of that imbalance because we're so used to being so far heavy on one side. The other side is kind of just left out there in the
Yeah.
open. Um, what did you do anything actively to kind of fix that when you got out? Like, did you really focus on being part of a veteran group or different kinds of hobbies? What helped you with that portion?
Veterans groups for sure. So I've been in the Nike Veterans group and the Gap Veterans group, helping where I can. I also volunteer with Special Olympics. So I'm the head swim coach for the Sumner County team now. And then when I was in Memphis, I was also doing volunteer coaching for swimming. And then I really leaned into the athletic side. So I got my yoga teacher training certificate and got really heavy into triathlons. I am retired now, but just finding ways to burn some energy. You have such a good foundation also for fitness too. And so when I first got out, I felt like, okay, well, I can do whatever I want. I'm gonna not work out and exercise, and then I just felt fat and lazy. So I then got back on it. And then, you just develop really good structure and really good routines, and finding community is really important. Also joined a triathlon team and a swim team too.
Yeah, triathlons are super impressive. That's really cool. I only dream of that. I think I could do everything except the swimming. I can't
Yeah, yeah.
swim to save my life. I would drown. It would be bad. So that's really impressive. On the opposite side of kind of what we've been talking about, what are some military habits you had to unlearn going into the civilian world? Is there anything that you had that you're like, okay, this isn't working?
I was a little aggressive. Um, yeah, soft skills are important. You have to learn how to gain buy-in. And another thing that I really had to learn is managing up better. So how do I have better conversations with my bosses, and push back respectively? Sometimes in the military, it's just get it done. I don't really care. But now that you're on a civilian side, no one really cares about the command structure. And again, it differs with each company, but there is the opportunity to push back and manage up and work with your boss, and offer better solutions, and then finding ways to kind of navigate a matrix structure. So those are probably the two things that I had to unlearn, and then also just getting a little more comfortable with disorganization. Like I said, when you get into the civilian side, not everything's documented, not everything's black and white. There's a lot of gray that you'll have to navigate, and kind of learning the nuances with HR and how to handle different circumstances and personalities with civilians is a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard from a lot of transitioning veterans that when it comes to talking to their leadership in the civilian world, they really struggle with speaking up at all. Because in the military, you're just it's kind of just like a be quiet and color type of
Yeah.
thing, rather than speaking your mind. What did you do to counter that? Did you kind of have to actively acknowledge that you needed to be better about that, and just were you really open with your leadership?
I remember that so when I was a project manager, my first role, like I was checking out at the end of the day with my boss, and she stopped me and she goes, "Are you checking out with me like to leave? I don't understand. What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm just telling you what I did for the day, and is it okay for me to leave?" And she goes, "Dude, like get out. Like if you finish your work, go home." So again, like learning that it is different, and just again, these are just experiences at Nike and Gap too. This may not be the same thing for the organization that you're joining. So you also have to take time to learn the culture. So you may need to check out with your boss, or you may need to learn kind of some of those nuances. But for me, especially speaking up. I think that's what made me more successful, because I was viewed as a person who was a straight shooter and who would tell it like it is. Now you have to find ways to communicate and push back, again, respectfully. But I think that's kind of why I've been able to progress on the civilian side.
Okay. Getting into interviewing a little bit, I'm sure you've gone through a few interviews and interviewed some people. In your years of experience, what do you have for advice on veterans going into their first interviews or applying for their first positions?
Yeah, just really being able to tell your story. Like I said, use your mom or whoever it is, to communicate what you've done and be very intentional about your scope too. Again, folks will not know what size elements you've worked with or who you supported. You may think they do, but they generally don't. And so anytime you're translating your military experience, it's like a sixth grade kind of level too would make the most sense. And then, I joined the end of Rick's session, but of the STAR format, a lot of folks forget the results portion of it. So they'll just talk about the situation, the task, and the action, and they leave out the true impact. So being able to quantify your impact with the stories that you are telling, I think is probably the best advice.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Well, I just have one last question. So if anybody else has any questions, go ahead and raise your hand before we let Laura go. But I just wanted to ask, what kind of excites you the most about supply chain management here in the upcoming future?
There is supply chain is kind of getting flipped on its head too. So there's so much with AI that's going to be available within supply chain. There's so many cool things with automation too. So a lot of kind of what we do now can be replaced by robots and automation. So it's really cool to see the transformation on the supply chain side. It is an industry that will never go away as long as folks are ordering things and need commodities. And there's always something wrong within the supply chain. So there's always a port closure, there's always tariffs, there's always something breaking at some point from origin to end of to the consumer or to the retailer. So I'm always busy. And it doesn't get boring, and there's something new that's kind of popping up. So if you're looking for an industry that's ever evolving and there's always a problem to fix, supply chain is a great space to be in.
Yeah, that sounds like something a veteran would be super interested in. I know we're all just kind of like all over and wanting to do a lot at the same time. So, Christopher, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. Like I mentioned, Gap being a Fortune 500 company, one of the things I feel like keeps Gap always in business is brand recognition. Do you have any personal opinions about how Gap keeps ahead with brand recognition, especially against competitors like Abercrombie and Fitch, as well as any other brands you might get at Walmart?
Yeah, so we've got a new CEO, Richard Dixon, and he has really transformed Gap into, I mean, they're kind of really turning it. So in terms of brand recognition, what he is focused on is something called fashiontainment. I think he even patented or trademarked that word. But it's connecting fashion and entertainment with brand recognition, and you're starting to see that with the Gap Moves campaign, and you're seeing that with I think just like more, so Zach Posen is also the new creative director for Gap too. So you're seeing Gap show up on the runways and at big events too. So I think he's done a really great job of making Gap very relevant again. And of course, Nike kind of owns that space too. But what Richard has brought to GAP now too is this focus on foundational excellence too. And so even though supply chain isn't the sexy, shiny objects, it's how do we get our foundations right? How do we do the right things right? How do we have the best processes so that everyone can get our products on time and delivered to the standard that is expected. So kind of a long-winded answer, but I think GAP's on the right trajectory.
Great.
Yeah, Christopher with the great questions today. I feel like Gap, I don't know anybody else, but I feel like Gap like 20 years ago was like really, really big. I remember like all the kids wearing it and all of that. And then for a while, you didn't really hear about Gap. And here in like the past 3 to 4 years, I feel like it's really, really been popping back up.
Totally.
So, yeah, that has to be because of the new CEO's influence. So he's killing it. If you ever see it, he's doing a great job.
I'll let him
Well,
know.
yeah. Well, Laura, thank you so much for coming on today. I think this was super helpful for me. Hopefully, it was helpful for everybody else. And you had some great advice to give, and we really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. So if you want an informational or you just want to chat, or if you want to look at a resume, or if you want to do any interview prep, I'm here to support.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you so much for that offer. I'm sure you're going to be getting 1,000,001 LinkedIn connections after this. Have a wonderful rest of your day, Laura.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Okay, everybody, that was our last speaker of the day. Please, please, please do your end of day surveys. As always, I will stick around here for a couple minutes in case you guys have any questions. But other than that, you guys are good to go. Have a great rest of your day. See you guys tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Rebecca,
Thank
what's
you.
up?
Hi, so I submitted a OJT for last week, for this week, and I just wanted to see what was the progress of it, if it was approved or not.
Yeah, you submitted an OJT request form?
Endure by Faith.
Okay, let me look up and see who your program coordinator is to see I can ask them if what they have going on with it. Each of you guys are assigned to a program coordinator on the team. I don't know if you've probably talked to them by now. So they will be the ones to help you out, but let me just see who it is.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of
You did
course.
really good hosting the rest of this too.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for asking questions today.
Mhm.
It looks like an email just got sent regarding your OJT today. So I will hit him up and ask if there's any news on it, but it does sound like they're talking with your OJT employer today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll look
Yeah.
forward to it tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. See you later. Have a good day.
See you. Thank you too.
Hey, Kylie.
Hey.
Hey, I got some more interviews and stuff coming up and going on. So yeah, exciting. I've been
Woohoo!
so I'll keep you in the loop when I get more information on that. I've been talking to these people through some informational type of requests, and they kind of fast tracked me through a phone interview
Yeah.
today, and I should be having an in-person interview later on. So hopefully I'll have a couple options. That would be nice. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to give you an update on that. Probably gonna have a busy week with interviews, and I'll let you know what comes out of it.
Yeah, amazing. Great job, Jonathan. I appreciate you taking my advice and going for it. It sounds like it's working out, so I'm excited to hear more about it. Hopefully, you'll have some wins of the week for Friday. You have a couple job opportunities. Crossing our fingers.
There you go.
Nice job, Jonathan.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk to y'all later.
See you later. Have a good day.
Sessions looked like they were fun today.
Yeah, they were. I was the only one IMC today, but I was sat in on Jordy's this morning, with what was his name from
With Rick?
Amazon. No, from Peter, with Peter from Amazon. It was Jordy's.
I missed that one. I wanted to be a part, but I had to go get my driver's license and something else renewed today.
Ah, man. Yeah, I was Jordy's college roommate, so I thought it would be fun to sit in on.
I was so bummed because it's like, when I picked him last week, I was like, yeah, sure. Then I sat there and looked at my personal calendar and I'm like, oh no.
No, it happens. I've done that more times than I can count.
Yeah, well, you know me, Mr. Attention to Detail. Hey, Diana, are you still on? Diana Alvarado.
I think she said she was going for a
Uh,
bathroom break,
yeah,
so
oh, yeah. And now I'm
she
looking at
could
the
still
chat.
be
Yeah.
on that.
And hey, who, Mary, you can turn off the recording. Hey, Kylie, go up top and you can turn off the recording. There we go. Okay, now we can talk.
Maybe Mary had stepped away as well.
Well, I don't know what time it is in the Philippines right now.
I think it's about 5 a.m. Something like that.
Joel, are you still online?
Guess not.
Well, he's someone else I had to follow up with as well.
Alrighty, I am gonna go ahead and hop off. Have a good rest of your day, Clay.
Yep, I will. I'll take over. I just need to follow up with them too, but I will catch you tomorrow. Looks like looks like I only got one session I'm hosting, and then I'm helping Ted with the Chiefs. So
Alrighty, sounds good. I'll see you later.
yeah. Diana and Joel, if you are online, please come off mute. Well, I lost one. Joel? Hey, Mary, you can dump off. You can sit there and make me the host, and I'll just hang out for a minute. Joel McElhaney, you there? Joel going once. Joel going twice. All right, maybe not. All right, I'm leaving for the day.